I'm Amelia Hartfield, 32 years old, and here I was, knee-deep in a dumpster behind a foreclosed mansion, when a woman in a designer suit approached me. "Excuse me, are you Amelia Hartfield?" she inquired. I was gripping a vintage chair leg, grime coating my hands, while my ex-husband's words echoed in my mind from 3 months prior, "Nobody's going to want a broke homeless woman like you." Perfectly fitting for a Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., where I was evaluating trash for its resale worth. I climbed out, brushing my hands on my filthy jeans. "That's me," I replied. "If you're here for a repo, this chair leg is literally all I have." She beamed at me. "I'm Victoria Chen, an attorney representing the estate of Theodore Hartfield." My heart stopped. This was Uncle Theodore, the man who raised me after my parents passed, who sparked my passion for architecture, and who cut me off when I chose love over my career a decade ago. "Your great-uncle passed away 6 weeks ago," Victoria continued. "He left you his entire estate. Where are you tuning in from today? Share your location in the comments and press that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt like you hit rock bottom, only for life to throw you an unexpected twist. You'll want to stick around for what happened next. 3 months prior, I was living a middle-class life. I owned a home, enjoyed a marriage, and held an architecture degree that remained unused. My ex-husband, William, made it clear that working was optional. "I make enough for both of us," he'd say, presenting it as romantic rather than controlling. When I found out about his affair with his secretary, everything shattered. The divorce was rough. He had expensive lawyers, while I had legal aid and a glimmer of hope. He got the house, the cars, the savings. I walked away with just a suitcase and the bitter realization that our prenup was unbreakable, his parting words echoing, "Good luck finding someone who will want damaged goods." Thus, I had resorted to dumpster diving for furniture, restoring items at a storage unit, and selling them online. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Victoria gestured toward a sleek black Mercedes. "Maybe we can have our discussion somewhere more comfortable." I glanced down at my appearance and thought, I'm not exactly ready for a Mercedes. "You're the sole heir to a $50 million estate," she stated calmly. "The car can handle some dust, $50 million. The number seemed unfathomable. I followed her in a daze. As we drove, Victoria handed me a folder. "Your uncle bequeathed you his Manhattan residence, a collection of Ferraris, investment properties, and a controlling share of Hartfield Architecture. The firm is valued at approximately $47 million. I gawked at the photos of the mansion showcasing in Architectural Digest. Uncle Theodore's masterpiece, the Hartfield Estate, a 5-story brownstone that beautifully blended Victorian style with modern flair. "There must be some mistake," I whisper. "He disowned me 10 years ago." Victoria's expression softened. "Mr. Hartfield never removed you from his will. You've always been his only beneficiary. However, there's one condition, of course." "What condition?" "You must take over as CEO of Hartfield Architecture within 30 days and maintain the position for at least a year. If you decline or fail, everything will go to the American Institute of Architects." I laughed bitterly. I haven't worked a single day as an architect. I graduated at 21, married at 22. My husband thought my education was a cute little hobby. "Mr. Hartfield hoped you'd return to architecture someday, and this is his way of giving you that opportunity," Victoria said softly. The car pulled up at a boutique hotel. "You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow, we fly to New York to meet with the board. You have 29 days to decide." I stared at the folder clutched in my hands, photos of the life I abandoned for a man who discarded me. The life Uncle Theodore always envisioned for me. "I'll do it," I declared. "When do we leave?" Victoria smiled. 8 a.m. Pack light. Everything you need will be ready for you." I glanced back at the garbage bag in the trunk that held my meager possessions. Trust me, packing light won't be an issue. The hotel room was better than anywhere I had resided in months. As I scrubbed the dumpster grime from under my nails, I caught sight of my reflection, hollow cheeks, weary eyes, hair desperately in need of a fix. This was what William had reduced me to. I reminisced about being 21, in my final year of architecture school. William had been 32, successful, and charming. He had strolled into my gallery showing where my sustainable community center design had taken first place. Uncle Theodore had been bursting with pride, saying, "You're going to change the world." He had promised, "Next year, you'll join my firm. We'll create history together." William had overheard, introduced himself, praised my work, and invited me to dinner. Within 6 months, we were engaged, in 8, married. Uncle Theodore had refused to attend. "You're making a mistake," he had warned me over the phone. "That man doesn't want a partner, he wants a trophy. You're choosing to lock yourself in a cage." I'd been furious, young and hopelessly in love. "You're simply envious because I'm forging my own path." "No," he replied with sorrow. "I'm devastated because you're letting go of all you achieved. However, you're an adult, it's your life to squander." We didn't communicate afterwards. Not when I sent holiday cards, nor when I called to celebrate his 80th birthday, or during moments when I needed him the most. From the start, William had been controlling. It began subtly, suggesting I should postpone job applications to adapt to married life, and then he discouraged taking the licensing exam. Why put yourself under stress? When I attempted freelancing from home to design extensions for neighbors, William would plan last-minute trips, making it impossible to meet my deadlines. Eventually, I gave up trying. My only act of defiance was pursuing education. I enrolled in online courses, read architectural journals, and attended lectures. Whenever William traveled, I filled notebooks with designs I'd never execute, concepts I wouldn't pitch, aspirations confined to paper. Once, William found those notes. "That's a nice hobby," he remarked dismissively. "But focus on making the house presentable. The Johnsons are coming over." I ordered room service, my first real meal in days. I looked for Hartfield architecture online. The website was sophisticated, displaying buildings from around the world, museums, hotels, residences, each a creation of Theodore Hartfield. I read his biography and saw a photo from years past of him, silver-haired and dignified, in front of the Seattle Museum of Modern Art. The caption noted he was survived by no children and preceded in death by his wife, Eleanor, although I had once been like a daughter to him. After my parents died when I was 15, Uncle Theodore took me in. He nurtured my passion for architecture, brought me to job sites, and taught me to view buildings as living entities. He funded my education and believed in my potential, yet I had thrown it all away for a man who never even cared to learn about my thesis. My phone vibrated. "Victoria's car will pick you up at 8 a.m. Bring everything you own. You won't return." I glanced at the garbage bag filled with my belongings, 1 suitcase of clothes, my laptop, and 17 notebooks accumulating a decade of designs. That was all I had. I spent the night revisiting those notebooks, reflecting on my progression. My early pieces were imitative, echoing Uncle Theodore's style. But over the years, I discovered my own voice, blending sustainable design with classical elements to create buildings that were both timeless and innovative. William's opinion mattered little now. It never really had. At 8 a.m., I stood in the lobby clutching my garbage bag, my head held high. Victoria was already waiting in the car. "Did you sleep well?" she inquired. "Better than I have in months." "What's next in New York?" "First, the Hartfield estate. Then, you'll meet the board at 2 p.m. They expect you to turn down their offer. Many are vying for parts of the company. Why would they think I'd decline?" Victoria smiled. "Because you lack experience in the field. Most would be intimidated. Good thing I'm not most people. And just to clarify, I know a lot about architecture, I simply never got the chance to practice it." As we boarded a private plane, I found it hard to believe this was real. Yesterday, I was living in a dumpster. Today, I was traveling first class to Manhattan. Tomorrow, I'd be running a multi-million-dollar firm. The universe had a peculiar sense of humor. The Manhattan skyline came into view as we descended. I had never been here before. William had disliked cities and preferred quiet suburbs where he could dominate our surroundings. The car drove through streets familiar only from films before turning onto a tree-lined block. The Hartfield estate was situated mid-block, a 5-story brownstone that felt both imposing and inviting. Its original Victorian facade was enhanced with modern features, solar panels disguised as roof tiles and smart glass windows, surrounded by carefully maintained gardens. "Welcome home," Victoria said. Have you ever had a moment where your entire life shifted with a single breath? Share your thoughts in the comments below, as I'm still grappling with this feeling even after years. A woman in her 60s greeted me at the door with a warm smile. "Miss Hartfield, I'm Margaret. I was your uncle's housekeeper for 30 years. She paused. "I took care of you, too, after your parents passed. You might not remember me well, you were just a child and grieving. Yet, I never forgot you." I vaguely recalled her, a kind woman who made sure I ate and comforted me when I was found crying in Theodore's study. "Margaret," I said as I hugged her. "Thank you for everything you did back then. Welcome home, dear girl. Your uncle never ceased hoping you'd return." The interior was stunning, showcasing original crown molding harmonizing with clean, modern lines, and adorned with art on every wall. The furniture was both comfortable and of museum-quality standard. This was more than just a house, it was a testament to what architecture could achieve. "Your uncle's suite is on the 4th floor, Margaret said as she guided me upstairs. "But he transformed the 5th floor into a studio for you. He did it 8 years ago." I halted, startled. 8 years ago? But we hadn't been in touch. Margaret's smile turned somber. "Mr. Theodore always believed you would eventually return home. He remarked that your talent was too significant to remain hidden forever. He had prepared this space for your eventual return." The 5th floor resembled a designer's paradise, featuring expansive windows, large drafting tables, a top-notch computer setup, and drawers filled with materials. On one wall hung a bulletin board with my college exhibition sketch attached. I touched it gently, my vision blurred by tears. Uncle Theodore had preserved it all these years. "He was very proud of you," Margaret said quietly. "He once mentioned that your talent was not lost, merely dormant, and that you would eventually rediscover your path." Victoria then appeared in the doorway. "The board meeting starts in an hour. Do you want to change?" Margaret arranged for clothing to be delivered. In the bedroom, I discovered a closet filled with high-quality professional outfits, including powerful suits. I chose a navy blue one that made me feel like the architect I never had the chance to become. Downstairs, a man in his late 30s stood next to Victoria. He had tall stature, dark hair with hints of gray, and kind yet analytical eyes. "Amelia Hartfield," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Jacob Sterling, a senior partner at Hartfield Architecture. I collaborated with your uncle for 12 years. "The Jacob Sterling? The one who designed the expansion of the Seattle Public Library?" His eyebrows raised in surprise. "You're familiar with my work?" "I know the work of everyone in the field. Although I haven't practiced, I've never stopped studying. Your library expansion utilized Bophilic design principles that many architects overlook. It was exceptional." A subtle change occurred in his demeanor. "So, you're no longer just Theodore's charity case. That's good. The board will test you right away." "Jacob," Victoria cautioned. "No, he's correct. I mentioned that they anticipate my failure. Uncle Theodore was aware of that, too." Jacob smiled. "Theodore considered you brilliant but defeated. He believed the woman who entered that boardroom would reveal whether you had endured intact." I reflected on William, my experience with dumpster diving, and Uncle Theodore's hope that I'd eventually use the studio he maintained. Let's not keep them waiting. The Hartfield architecture offices spanned 3 floors in Midtown. Staff members turned to observe as we entered. In the conference room, 8 people sat around a table, regarding me as if I were an unwelcome guest. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria started. This is Amelia Hartfield, Theodore Hartfield's great-niece and the incoming CEO of this firm. A man in his 50s leaned back in his chair. Respectfully, Miss Hartfield has never held a position in this industry. This decision suggests Theodore wasn't thinking clearly. Actually, Mr. Carmichael, I replied steadily. My uncle was very clear in his thinking. He recognized that this firm needed a fresh perspective, not the same old leadership clinging to past successes. I took out a notebook. This is a sustainable mixed-use development that I designed 3 years ago. It features rain gardens, green roofs, and passive solar design. I have 16 additional notebooks like this, 10 years of designs created secretly because my ex-husband dismissed architecture as a mere hobby. Carmichael flipped through it, his expression unchanged, while other board members leaned in to examine it. A woman interjected. Even if your designs are impressive, managing a firm requires business skills, client connections, and project oversight. You're correct, I agreed. That's why I intend to rely heavily on the current team, especially Jacob. I'm not here to act like I know everything. My goal is to learn, lead, and honor my uncle's legacy while introducing fresh ideas. If you prefer working under someone who favors maintaining the status quo over progress, you are free to leave. Victoria presented contracts. Those who want to stay will need to sign new agreements. Those who wish to leave can collect severance. You have until the end of the business day. As the meeting came to a close, Jacob approached me. That was a smart move. You've made half the board your enemy, but the crucial half respects you. Have I become one of your adversaries? Theodore mentioned a year ago that if anything happened, I should assist you in succeeding. He believed you had been buried for too long, and once you broke through, you'd be unstoppable. I think he was right. I gazed out at the Manhattan skyline. He usually was, though his choice in board members could use improvement. Carmichael looks like he dines on kittens for breakfast. Jacob chuckled. You'll do just fine here. My first week was an intense lesson in everything I had missed. Jacob became my guide, helping me navigate projects, introduce me to clients, and explain the office dynamics. It felt like returning home to a place I had never really known. Your uncle had a unique management style, Jacob explained in my new office, which was clean apart from a few of his favorite items, a 1970s drafting table worn smooth, a leather chair with a faint scent of his cologne, and architectural models of his renowned buildings. Let me guess, I said. Intimidating. Brilliant. Impossible to satisfy. Jacob laughed. Close. He required excellence but offered the freedom to carve your own path. He preferred to witness spectacular failures over mediocre successes. I resonated with that philosophy. Uncle Theodore had held a similar viewpoint when I was younger. Suddenly, my computer alerted me with an email from Carmichael directed at all senior staff. The directive was clear: all design decisions must receive board approval prior to client presentations. I exchanged glances with Jacob. This wasn't how Uncle Theodore operated. No, Theodore had faith in his architects. Carmichael is attempting to undermine you. I hit reply all. This policy is not accepted. Hartfield architecture thrived because we relied on our designers' expertise. Board approval is only necessary for projects exceeding $10 million, as stipulated in the company charter. Send. Jacob raised his eyebrows. You just made him look foolish. Good. William had me second-guessing every decision for a decade. I refuse to let men dictate when I need permission. Carmichael responded almost immediately, requesting a private meeting. I agreed, with Jacob present. When Carmichael arrived, his demeanor was frigid. "Ms. Hartfield, I'm attempting to safeguard this company's reputation by bypassing protocol and undermining the CEO. Quite an interesting tactic. Your uncle entrusted me with 30% of this company. I've dedicated 23 years here. I won't stand by and watch you dismantle what we've built." I leaned back in Theodore's chair. "Let me clarify. My uncle granted me controlling interest. You can either collaborate with me or oppose me, but should you choose the latter, you'll be at a loss. I recommend you contemplate over the weekend which direction aligns best with your interests." After he exited, Jacob whistled. "Where did that come from?" I smiled, my hands trembling. After 3 months of enduring adversity, I decided I would rather face failure on my own terms. Plus, I've been binge-watching Succession. I picked up a few things. That evening, while exploring the office alone, I discovered folders in Theodore's cabinets labeled with my name by year, my undergraduate work, articles about my wedding, photos from various marriage milestones, my smile fading as I sifted through them. In the recent folder were newspaper articles about my divorce and court documents detailing how poorly I had been treated. Beneath them was a letter in Theodore's handwriting dated 2 months before his passing. "Amelia, if you are reading this, you have finally returned home. I apologize for my stubbornness. I should have reached out countless times, but I was hurt by your poor choices. By the time I set aside my pride, too much time had elapsed. I watched you diminish yourself year after year. I wanted to step in, but Margaret urged me to let you find your own way out. She was right. You had to make the choice to leave. This company was always destined for you. From the moment you moved in at 15 and showed interest in my blueprints, I recognized you would be my successor, not just because you're family, but because you're brilliant. Your studio holds something special in the bottom right drawer of the filing cabinet. Use it wisely. And Amelia, I am proud of you. I have always been proud, even when I was too stubborn to express it." At the estate, I located the filing cabinet. The drawer was locked, but I found a key taped underneath. Inside were 17 leather portfolios, each labeled with a year. These contained Theodore's early designs, the actual working sketches, raw and unrefined drafts, revisions, notes on what succeeded and what didn't. Each portfolio depicted a year of his journey. This was architectural history. The note in the recent portfolio brought me to tears. These are my failures, my false starts, the terrible ideas that eventually transformed into good ones. I'm sharing this with you because young architects must realize that even the greats struggled. Use these to teach, to motivate, to remind yourself that brilliance is not innate but developed one imperfect sketch at a time, just like you are currently rebuilding yourself. Love, T. By morning, I had a concept. When Jacob arrived, I was sketching furiously. "What are you working on?" "A mentorship program. The Hartfield Fellowship will attract architecture students from diverse backgrounds. Show them these portfolios. Let them learn from Theodore's methodology. Real project experience. Paid internships. Genuine involvement." Jacob examined my sketches. "That's costly and time-consuming." "Exactly. That's the aim. We're not merely constructing buildings, we're shaping the next generation." Theodore would have loved that. He definitely would have. Jacob responded softly. "You're not trying to emulate Theodore. You are becoming exactly who he envisioned you would be." I looked at him appreciatively. "Thank you for not making me feel like I need to prove myself every moment. You proved yourself from day one. Everything since has merely been reinforcement." My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I opened it and froze. "Congratulations on your inheritance. Seems you've landed on your feet. We should converse. R. William." He discovered my announcement through the Architectural Digest article. Typical. I showed Jacob, who looked concerned. Do you want me to handle it? I glanced at William's desperate attempt to slip back into my life now that I had financial security, feeling nothing but distant pity. No, I replied, deleting and blocking him. He's not worth a response. He's fading from my narrative. And this was indeed the case. William was becoming inconsequential, a mere footnote in a far more compelling story. The Anderson project marked my inaugural significant client presentation as CEO. A tech billionaire sought an innovative headquarters in Seattle, sustainable and iconic, precisely what Hartfield architecture excelled at. I dedicated 3 weeks to the design alongside our engineers, incorporating elements like a green roof, rainwater harvesting, and smart glass to optimize light and temperature. The building was envisioned to be vibrant and responsive. Jacob deemed it exceptional, and Theodore would have taken pride in it. The presentation was set for 10 a.m. Arriving at 9:45, I discovered my laptop missing. The models were present, yet the computer containing my presentation was nowhere to be found. Looking for this? Carmichael appeared at the doorway, holding my laptop. Found it in the break room. Someone must have moved it, right? And I'm the Queen of England. I had no time to dispute this. I powered on the laptop, and my presentation loaded normally, but when I connected to the projector, panic struck. The file was corrupted, slides scrambled, images missing, and renderings replaced with error messages. Everything okay? Jacob inquired as he walked in with clients. I had half a minute to choose: panic, delay, concede defeat, or respond like Theodore would have. Without hesitation, I smiled and said, "Let's approach this differently. Mr. Anderson, you mentioned you wanted a building that narrates a story. Allow me to share that story." I moved to the whiteboard and began sketching, my hand flowing with the confidence gained over the past decade. I illustrated the building's silhouette, explaining how its shape was derived from the landscape and how each angle held significance. Traditional architecture views buildings as static entities, I noted while detailing my sketches. But your headquarters will be dynamic and alive. I illustrated airflow, water collection, and seasonal sun angles. In summer, the smart glass automatically darkens. In winter, it opens to enhance passive solar heat. Anderson leaned forward, eyes wide with interest. I continued sketching and explaining each choice, with Jacob passing me colored markers to add depth and life. After 45 minutes, the whiteboard was filled with a thorough representation of my vision, raw, sincere, and full of genuine passion. Anderson stood, scrutinizing the board. This is precisely what I wanted. Someone who comprehends buildings as living systems. When can you commence? After they departed, having quickly agreed to terms, I finally exhaled. Jacob was beaming. That was remarkable. Someone tampered with my files. This was sabotage. I know, he replied. Carmichael borrowed your laptop yesterday to check timelines. It's irrelevant. He wanted me to fail. Instead, I proved that I don't need lavish presentations. The work itself speaks volumes. That evening, I convened an emergency board meeting with Victoria as legal counsel. I need to discuss the incidents from this morning. My files were intentionally corrupted to undermine my credibility. Carmichael shifted uneasily. That's serious. Indeed, which is why I had the modifications traced back. They originated from your computer yesterday at 6:47 p.m. Silence ensued. Carmichael's face paled. I was reviewing files. If something was accidentally altered, there was nothing accidental about corrupting every backup, Jacob remarked coldly. I was testing her, Carmichael retorted. Theodore left this company in the hands of an untested amateur. I chuckled. You sought to see if I would crumble, Mr. Carmichael? I spent 3 months living in a storage unit, and I scavenged furniture to trade for food. Your file corruption is insignificant to me. However, sabotaging the company for your own ego makes you a liability. I rose from my seat. Here's the situation, you will resign immediately. In return, the company will buy out your 30% stake at fair market value, and you will sign a non-disparagement agreement. Otherwise, I will file formal complaints leading to legal action, which would ruin your reputation. You have until the end of business tomorrow to decide. After the meeting, Jacob approached me at the window. You managed that flawlessly. Did I? I pondered, wrestling with the urge to terminate him outright, but you provided him with an exit that preserves dignity while eliminating the threat. That's true leadership. Theodore often said, a good leader is not measured by their success but by how they manage those who seek to tear them down. I turned to him. Jacob, why are you genuinely assisting me? You could have seized control of this company. He was silent. Theodore asked me to. Yes, but this isn't mere obligation. In just a month, you've begun transforming this organization, the fellowship program, your interactions with junior architects, and your approach to treating buildings as living systems. You're reigniting passion. He stepped closer. And because I witnessed your impromptu presentation. The way you sketched and articulated with every inch of your being, that's genuine, not feigned. That's a person who has been stifled and has finally discovered how to breathe. There was something in his tone that made my heart leap. This was more than just professional admiration. Jacob, I began, but he raised a hand to stop me. I won't complicate matters. You've just exited a difficult marriage. You're in the process of rebuilding. I simply wanted you to know that I see you, the authentic you, and she is extraordinary. He departed before I could reply. The next morning, Carmichael resigned. The company purchased his shares, reallocating them among the other board members and key staff. The primary hurdle to my leadership had been removed. However, I sensed that the true difficulties were only just beginning. 2 weeks after Carmichael's exit, Margaret discovered a leather-bound journal behind Theodore's architecture books. Miss Hartfield, you should read this. Your uncle maintained a diary. Many of the entries concern you. The journal spanned 15 years, from when I first lived with him until just weeks before his passing. The entries about my marriage stunned me. March 15th, 10 years ago, Amelia wed William Foster today. I declined to attend. Margaret claims I'm being stubborn and cruel. Perhaps, but I can't bear to watch someone I raised enter a cage willingly. I warned her he was controlling, yet she chose him regardless. All I can do now is wait and hope she finds her way back. December 8th, 9 years ago, I've heard from mutual contacts that Amelia isn't working. William forbids it. My brilliant girl is fading away in suburban isolation. I want to reach out, but Margaret forbids me. She believes Amelia must realize this on her own, that my interference would make her defensive. I resent that she's right. July 22nd, 8 years ago, started constructing the studio on the 5th floor today. Margaret believes I'm foolish to prepare a place for someone who may never return, but I need to believe she will. The studio is my act of faith. Victoria 8th, 5 years ago, spotted Amelia at a charity gala. William had his hand on her back all night, guiding her. She appeared thin, exhausted, her smile fragile. I wanted to speak up, yet she averted her gaze. I doubt she even realizes her own decline. January 30th, 3 years ago, I heard William is having an affair. Everyone knows except Amelia. Part of me wants to inform her, but Margaret is right, she needs to discover it on her own. She must be angry enough to leave. If I tell her, she might cling to the marriage out of pride. November 11th, 2 years ago, reviewed my will today. Everything remains for Amelia, contingent upon her running the firm for at least a year. Jacob thinks I'm manipulative, maybe so, but this company has been intended for her since she was 15, when I found her sketching my buildings. She has the talent, she just has to remember it. September 4th, 1 year ago. The doctor estimates I have about 6 months left. I've reconciled with dying. However, I can't reconcile with the thought of Amelia potentially enduring a lifetime in that stifling marriage. All I can do is leave her the tools to rebuild when she's ready. December 20th, 6 months ago, Amelia filed for divorce. Thank goodness this is her opportunity. The divorce may be difficult, but she is stronger than she realizes. March 8th, 8 weeks ago, I am deteriorating quicker than anticipated. The pain is significant, but I feel at peace. Victoria has been instructed to find Amelia after I'm gone. The rest is up to her. She'll either rise to the challenge or carve her own path. Either way, she'll be free. That's all I've ever wanted. Love always, Theodore. I sat in his study with tears streaming down my face, feeling sorrow, gratitude, and love for a man who prepared a studio 8 years before I required it, just in case. He cared for you deeply, Margaret said. Everything he did sprang from that love. He thought that if he pushed too hard, you might pull away. So, he waited and created this space for you to return to. I wasted so much time. No, you gained the experience you needed to gain. Theodore knew that. That evening, I called Jacob. Can you come to the estate? I need to talk. He arrived within an hour. I handed him the journal. He read it quietly. When he finished, he regarded me thoughtfully. How are you feeling? Seen. Theodore understood me better than I understood myself. Jacob moved closer. For what it's worth, he was right. The Amelia who came into that board meeting couldn't have existed without everything you endured. He mentioned you, saying you'd assist me, that you'd grasp what he was trying to accomplish. I was unaware of the journal, but yes, he spoke to me about you nearly a year before he passed. He told me his brilliant niece was squandering her life and that when she finally broke free, she'd need someone who wouldn't attempt to control her. He made me promise I'd support you. Is that why you've been so kind? Out of duty? Jacob admitted, it began that way. But Amelia, I stopped doing this for Theodore weeks ago. Now, it's because I see you becoming more of yourself every day. That's not obligation. That's admiration. He carefully took my hand. To be completely truthful, my feelings go beyond simple admiration. However, you've just exited a difficult marriage, and I don't want to rush you. I glanced at our hands and wondered if I might be ready. Jacob smiled and assured me that we could navigate this together at whatever speed felt comfortable. No pressures, no expectations, just two architects creating something new. We stood together on Theodore's rooftop, overlooking the city, and I experienced a feeling I hadn't felt in 10 years, hope. Not just for my career, but for my life as well. Theodore had restored my faith in myself, demonstrating that sometimes those who love us must take a step back and allow us to experience failure, as it's how we learn to realize our strength. The greatest inheritance isn't wealth or property, it's the gift of believing in your own extraordinary potential. The Hartfield Fellowship was launched 3 months after I assumed my role, attracting over 300 applications for just 12 positions. Jacob and I dedicated weeks to reviewing portfolios, and I pointed out one in particular, Emma Rodriguez, who is designing homeless shelters that include community gardens. She views architecture as a means of social transformation. Jacob examined it closely. She's young and only 22, without experience. I reminded him that I had no experience either when Theodore took a chance on me. That's the key point. The fellows arrived in September, visibly anxious. I gathered them in the studio and explained, your presence here is not charity, it's an investment. Theodore Hartfield believed that great architecture emerges from diverse perspectives. You will work on real projects alongside our established architects. Your ideas will be listened to, debated, and occasionally, put into action. Welcome to Hartfield Architecture. After the meeting, Emma approached me, her hands trembling. Miss Hartfield, thank you. My family didn't understand why I wanted to pursue architecture. I smiled and guessed, they told you it was just a nice hobby and not a real career? Exactly, she confirmed. I replied, people who don't grasp passion will always try to belittle it. My ex-husband spent 10 years insisting my degree was a silly waste of time. Don't let anyone diminish your dreams of great things. The program was intense. All fellows committed to 40 hours a week on firm projects while also developing designs with guidance. Some senior architects expressed discontent, but the majority welcomed the initiative. By November, Emma's community shelter design drew interest from a nonprofit in Brooklyn, wanting Hartfield to lead the project with Emma as the primary designer under supervision. This is too much responsibility, Emma expressed anxiously. I reassured her, you're an architect, act like one. This project became Emma's chance to prove herself. Critics questioned whether we were taking advantage of young talent. I addressed this issue in an interview with Architectural Digest, stating, the Hartfield Fellowship is not about exploitation, it's about breaking down barriers that keep talented individuals from entering architecture. Emma comes from a working-class background and couldn't afford unpaid internships. Programs like ours ensure that talent, rather than privilege, dictates success. The article featured images of our fellows, and within a week, 3 other firms announced similar initiatives. You're transforming the industry, Jacob remarked one evening. I said, I'm just doing what Theodore taught me. Although I'm sure he'd have a sarcastic remark about it taking me a decade to understand that. Jacob had become more than just my business partner. We had developed a comfortable routine, working late, sharing meals, and discussing everything. The attraction was undeniable, yet we maintained professionalism until the company holiday party in December. I had spent the day at the Brooklyn site with Emma, observing her discuss her design confidently with the construction crews. By the time I reached the party, I was late, somewhat disheveled, and genuinely happy. Jacob spotted me near the bar. You missed the speeches, he said. Let me guess, everyone thanked everyone, and someone made an awkward joke while Melissa from accounting got tipsy too quickly? I chuckled, exactly that sequence. As the DJ switched to a slow song, Jacob offered his hand. Dance with me. I hesitated, feeling that this might be crossing a boundary, but looking into his face, I recalled Theodore's journal about embarking on something new. Just one dance. He pulled me close, and we swayed in silence, simply being together. Amelia, he said quietly. I know we agreed on keeping things professional. We did. And I understand you're still healing, he added. I am. But I need you to know something. I'm in love with you. Not just falling, but completely and irrevocably in love. I'll wait as long as you need or step back entirely, but I couldn't go another day without sharing this with you. My heart raced. A part of me felt panic rise, but a larger part, the part that had learned to take bold steps, wanted to leap forward. I'm terrified. William made me question everything. What if I'm not ready? What if I ruin this? Jacob responded, then we'll navigate it together. I'm not William, I don't want to control you. I cherish the person you are right now, the brilliant architect who improvises presentations and initiates fellowship programs. You are not someone in need of change. I kissed him right there on the dance floor, in front of half the company, spontaneous and probably complicated, but it felt so right. When we separated, an unexpected silence enveloped the room, only to be broken by a single clap that triggered a wave of applause. I pressed my face against Jacob's shoulder, laughing. Well, he said with a grin, so much for being professional. Theodore once said that the most remarkable architecture stems from daring risks. I guess that wisdom applies to life as well. What do you think will unfold next? Share your predictions in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because a twist is on the horizon that nobody anticipated. My relationship with Jacob transformed everything yet nothing at all. At work, I remained the CEO and senior partner. After hours, I explored a new side of myself with Jacob. He was incredibly patient with my uncertainties, never forcing anything, always grounding me when I needed it. In contrast to William, who preferred me to be small, Jacob grew alongside me. "Tell me about your marriage," he asked one January evening as we settled into the library. It was a month since we'd made it official, with snow gently falling outside. I tensed up. "Why?" "Because I sense you're waiting for me to become him. Every time you achieve something, you brace yourself. I want to grasp what he did, so I can avoid mirroring those mistakes." I had never gone into detail with anyone, but Jacob's expression radiated only concern. He made me feel like parts of me were excessive or insufficient. My degree seemed cute but impractical, and my ambitious ideas felt like mere hobbies to him. When I got excited about architecture, he called it obsessive. When I fell quiet, I came off as dull. It was so frustrating. But that wasn't truly about you. It was about him needing you to feel insecure. I realize that now, yet for a decade, I believed him. I shrank away further and further. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. He still cheated. Jacob held my hand tightly. "Amelia, you're the most incredible person I've ever met. Your passion is not too much, it's everything. When you talk about buildings, your face shines with energy. The moment you walked into that board meeting and refused to apologize for simply existing, I knew you were destined to change everything." I kissed him, overwhelmed by the contrast between feeling celebrated versus being erased. "I love you," I confessed, my first time saying those words. "I'm still learning to navigate this without fear, but I love you, and together we'll figure it all out." That's the difference, we're a team. In February, Architectural Digest featured me. The article wasn't solely about the fellowship, it showcased my journey from dumpster diving to leading a prestigious firm. Theodore's decade of patience was transformative for Hartfield architecture. The response was phenomenal. Media outlets clamored for interviews, schools invited me to speak, and clients flocked to Hartfield. My Instagram skyrocketed with 50,000 new followers in just 1 week, though notoriety came with its share of unwanted attention. On a Tuesday, William called while I was in a meeting. His name lit up my phone. I had never updated his contact details. Maybe that's something I need to address with a therapist. I ignored his call, then he texted, commenting on the Architectural Digest article and suggesting we should chat. I showed the message to Jacob, who frowned. "Block him," he urged. But I wanted to know what he wanted first. The next message revealed his mistakes and a proposal to meet for coffee. "Closure," he said. I scoffed bitterly. He only wants back in now that I've found success. "You're not meeting him." "Absolutely not. But I will respond." I typed, "William, you spent 10 years convincing me I was worthless. You stripped everything away and insisted that no one would want a broke, homeless woman. You were wrong about me, and you hold no relevance in my life now. Please don't reach out again." I hit send, then blocked and deleted his number. It felt liberating. Jacob embraced me. "How do you feel?" William kept escalating, messaging Emma pretending to be an ex, then sending a lawyer's letter proposing business and reconciliation. Jacob and I shut him down. Victoria sent a firm cease and desist, and I chose pity over outrage when rumors spread that I'd stolen Theodore's company. At a gallery opening, Theodore's friends and Patricia confirmed he'd quietly planned my inheritance and defended my character, which put the gossip to rest. I admitted I regretted the lost years but not the path that led me here. Meanwhile, the Brooklyn shelter and my fellowship drew attention. Adrian Chen launched a smear, so I answered with a viral op-ed, building bridges, defending our mentorship model and challenging industry nepotism. The backlash turned to support, the fellowship gained momentum, and a streaming producer offered a documentary, bringing exposure but forcing me to weigh how much of my private life I was willing to share. That night, Jacob and I weighed the documentary offer. It meant revisiting painful memories, my marriage, the estrangement from Theodore, but I decided I'd control the narrative. William was just an obstacle, not the story. The crew filmed for 2 months, capturing the shelter's opening, fellowship milestones, and stories of Theodore's quiet pride. When asked about William, I simply said, he needed me small to feel significant. Losing everything freed me. The documentary premiered to acclaim, inspiring countless viewers, especially women. Then William called, angry, claiming I'd ruined his reputation. I reminded him I'd never named him and that his guilt was his own reflection. When he demanded an apology, I refused. "You're just a footnote in my story," I told him, before hanging up and calling Victoria to send a cease and desist. At dinner, Jacob smiled proudly. A woman thanked me for sharing my truth. It gave her daughter hope. Jacob said softly, "You're changing lives." That's Theodore's legacy. Months later, during the partnership vote, the board unanimously promoted Jacob and me to co-CEOs. Then Patricia revealed an acquisition offer. Adrian Chen's firm wanted to buy Hartfield Architecture for $300 million. Jacob warned it was a trap, and I agreed. Selling meant erasing everything Theodore built, everything I'd fought for. I didn't hesitate. "No," I said. "Theodore didn't leave me this company so I could sell it to someone who represents everything he stood against." My answer is no. The board exchanged knowing glances before Patricia smiled. "That's exactly what we hoped you'd say. Theodore's will included a clause we couldn't reveal until you'd been CEO for a year and refused a major acquisition." She handed me a document. "By turning down any substantial offer, you inherit an additional $30 million trust." I was speechless. It wasn't about the money, it was another test. Even from beyond the grave. Theodore wanted to confirm I valued purpose over profit. Jacob watched my reaction. "How do you feel?" "Grateful," I said. He didn't restrict me, he refined me. These challenges shaped me into who I was meant to be. This company isn't just Theodore's legacy anymore, it's ours. And it's never for sale. The board unanimously approved Jacob as co-CEO. After the meeting, Patricia handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a ring etched with architectural blueprints and a note in Theodore's handwriting, "Amelia, you've passed my final test." This belonged to my wife, Eleanor, one of the first women architects of her era. Build bravely. Live passionately. I'm proud of you. T. The ring fit perfectly. That night, as I stood overlooking the city skyline, Jacob joined me. Angry, he asked softly. "No," I smiled. He believed in me enough to test me. That's love in its truest form. Jacob hugged me from behind. "He knew you'd succeed. You value people over profit, that's what makes you extraordinary." Then, nervously, he pulled out a small box. "Amelia Hartfield, will you marry me?" I laughed through tears. Just a year ago, I was trapped with someone who dimmed my light. Now, I was being asked by someone who celebrated it. "Yes," I said. The ring slid beside Eleanor's, legacy and new beginnings intertwined. Downstairs, Margaret was waiting with champagne. "Mr. Theodore would have been so proud," she said, handing us an envelope Theodore had left behind. "Jacob and Amelia, if you're reading this together, then everything went just as I hoped. Build something magnificent, but don't name any children Theodore. That name ends with me. T." We laughed and toasted to him, our mentor and matchmaker from beyond. The engagement took the architecture world by storm, interviews, congratulations, admiration. But the peace shattered one cold November morning when Victoria called. "Amelia, William just filed a lawsuit. He's claiming you used marital assets to invest in Hartfield Architecture. That he believes he deserves a share of your inheritance?" Victoria said dryly. I actually laughed. "I was broke when we divorced, he took everything. How could I have possibly invested a cent?" Victoria sighed. "He's claiming that the skills you developed during your marriage, while he supported you, are marital assets that contributed to your current success. It's nonsense, but he's doing it to exhaust you financially." Jacob, listening on speaker, slammed his hand on the table. He's furious you're engaged. This isn't about money, it's revenge. Exactly, Victoria said. So we'll respond in kind. Amelia, gather every record that proves how he sabotaged your career, emails, texts, anything. I remembered my journals, 10 years of writing I'd never shown anyone. Jacob helped me dig them out of storage, covered in dust and regret. Listen to this, I said, reading aloud. William told his colleague my degree was a cute hobby, not a career. When I corrected him, he said I was embarrassing him. Then I apologized. Jacob's jaw tightened. You apologized for being yourself. I did, I admitted. But not anymore. The journals revealed everything, his gaslighting, manipulation, isolation, even how he accidentally made me miss job interviews. Victoria was stunned. This isn't just evidence, it's a pattern of abuse. We'll file a counterclaim for defamation, harassment, and emotional distress. Within a week, we filed. William's lawyers immediately tried to settle, offering to drop his case if we withdrew ours. Absolutely not, I told Victoria. He's spent years trying to erase my voice. I'm done protecting his reputation. Just know, this will all be public, she warned. Good, I said. Let the truth be public. The hearing took place in December. I walked into that courtroom with Jacob beside me and Margaret in the gallery, my confidence steady. William sat across the aisle, smug, until the judge began reading our counterclaims. Mr. Foster, these documents allege emotional abuse, financial control, and deliberate interference with Ms. Hartfield's career. Care to explain? His lawyer stammered, Your Honor, those claims are exaggerated. My client supported her, Victoria cut in, calm and precise. Supported her, or confined her? We have documented proof he sabotaged her job prospects, withheld finances, and used manipulation to keep her dependent. That's not support, it's abuse. She presented my journals, old emails, and testimony from our marriage counselor. By the end, William's confidence was gone. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Foster, your claims have no legal standing. Ms. Hartfield's inheritance occurred post-divorce. You cannot demand compensation for an education you actively suppressed. This court finds your case retaliatory and malicious. Motion dismissed, with prejudice. Outside, reporters swarmed. Miss Hartfield, how do you feel about the ruling? One asked. I smiled, steady and certain. Vindicated. My ex-husband spent years trying to convince me I was worthless. He took everything in our divorce. When I rebuilt my life, he tried to take that too. Today, the court affirmed what I've always known, you can't silence the truth forever. William Foster was a small man who couldn't handle strong women, but I refused to let him control my story anymore. When asked if I'd take legal action, I laughed. No. He's not worth my time. I have buildings to create, a company to lead, and a wedding to plan. The interview went viral, and soon, other women came forward, exposing his behavior. His reputation collapsed, not because of me, but because of who he truly was. That night, Jacob found me on the rooftop. How do you feel? He asked. Free, I said. Completely free. Every trial had led me here, proving I wasn't shaped by those who tried to break me, but by how I rebuilt myself. I showed him my new plan, to use Theodore's $30 million trust to launch a nationwide public architecture initiative. Creating libraries and community spaces that made beauty accessible to all. Our own legacy, Jacob said, and I smiled. Partners in everything. 18 months after I crawled out of that dumpster, we married on Theodore's rooftop garden. It was small, joyful, and filled with the people who believed in me. Theodore's final gift was a portfolio of unbuilt designs and a note, build boldly, for those who need proof of their worth. We laughed through tears, hearing his voice as clearly as ever. The following year, Hartfield Architecture launched the initiative, transforming Theodore's dreams into living spaces for everyone, and turning my story from survival into a legacy of creation. Each project reflected sustainability, creativity, and community spirit. Emma led the Philadelphia Library design, her first as lead architect, and moved everyone with her words, "Architecture saved my life." It taught me that we can build brighter futures. I hugged her, whispering, "Theodore would have been proud." Over the years, Hartfield architecture flourished, not for fame, but for purpose. We built schools, housing, and spaces where people could belong. Awards came, but what mattered most were the lives we changed. Meanwhile, William faded into obscurity, undone by his own actions. I felt nothing, no anger, no triumph, just peace. 5 years later, I stood before graduates at my alma mater, sharing what life had taught me. You may lose yourself for a while, but you can always rebuild. You're architects of buildings, of lives, of second chances. The applause was thunderous, but what stayed with me were the students who said my story gave them hope. That night, back at the estate, Jacob was sketching a children's museum. I stood on Theodore's rooftop, looking over a skyline we helped shape. 18 months ago, I thought I'd lost everything. Now, I understood, I had only been rediscovering who I truly was. Emma texted that she'd won the San Francisco project. I smiled, replying, "You're proving Theodore right, potential always finds its light." Jacob joined me, asking, "Where to next?" I looked at him and said, "Wherever our designs take us." In that moment, I realized Theodore's greatest gift wasn't money or a company, it was the wisdom that rock bottom teaches you to value solid ground. I had rebuilt myself stronger, freer, unstoppable. I wasn't a victim or an heir. I was an architect of dreams, of change, of new beginnings. And that was the inheritance that truly mattered.